Hey, all my Virgo friends. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and I'm here today with your September 2024 monthly horoscope. These horoscopes are based on whole sign Western astrology. So when I'm talking about Virgo, I'm referring to Virgo as the first house and dictating the landscape of the chart. This is also applicable to Virgo Sun and Virgo Moon. And if you have 3 or more personal planets in the sign of Virgo, this video is for you as well. When I refer to a day and a time, it's based on the Pacific time zone, so please adjust for your location. The month starts with Uranus going retrograde in your 9th house of foreign people, foreign travel, foreign ideas, expansion, wealth, diversity. It rules higher education. It rules higher court systems. It rules philosophies and ideologies. And Taurus rules your personal history and your skills and your voice and your ability to grow things in your life through your skills. It rules craftsmen, and it rules singers, and it rules songwriters, and people who use their voice to express themselves. So what we're seeing is Uranus walking through this house since 2018, really bringing you new ideas, new opportunities, breaking up old systems. Wherever Uranus goes, there is a sense of upheaval and the unexpected. And these unexpected events can have long-term, life-altering ramifications. And in that 9th house, what we're seeing is a real changing of the belief system, potentially a changing of philosophies, even in business. And we see that there is a favorable aspect to Pluto, which is currently in Aquarius in your 6th house of work. It's retrograding back into Capricorn. It will actually do that in just a few hours, but you've experiencing a taste of change within your career potentials. So this is very powerful. And the favorable aspect is going to go on actually for years. There's going to be a conversation between Pluto and Uranus, and then also Neptune as they form 2 sextiles and because Neptune also forms a sextile to Pluto. But let me go back here to Uranus. This is giving you heaven's support. It's giving you an opportunity to spend some time alone, sort of really thinking about what's important to you, how you want to foster a sense of peace, a sense of harmony, a sense of balance. Pisces is a very creative and compassionate sign, and it is giving you an opportunity to implement those things for yourself through your connection to your heavenly hosts, your team, source energy. This is all very much moving you into the future. Now we see this square to your Leo, which is your 12th house, with Mercury and the moon on the first day. This is a challenge between my everyday activities, the things that I think about, the processes. It's a little bit like this is the World Wide Web here with Uranus, and here are your emails telling you everything you have to do every day, and those everyday communications, and they're at odds with one another. And there is a feeling of wanting to be liberated from it all, but not quite knowing how to go about it. And I feel like the how is really reflected in this 12th house energy. Because the 12th house is where we feel a sense of invisibility, where we have to go sort of into a quiet place to blot out the rest of the world, to flesh out our dreams, our hopes, our desires, and birth them on some level as we move into that first house of self. So this is a really powerful way to start the day. And before the day is out, I'm going to move to about 10 p.m., we will see that Pluto has moved back into Capricorn. Capricorn is your 5th house of creativity, of self-expression, of playtime and fun and frivolity. It's also a house of leadership, because as you stand on the stage of your own life and let the audience experience you, you can find a lot of validation and inspire others. Now, at this time that Pluto moves into your fifth house for the last time for 84 years, it will move back into Aquarius on November 19th and stay there until March of 2043. So Pluto has been doing quite a renovation here in how you feel obligated, where your fears are, how you're building your sense of individual, unique expression. When we look at the wheel, the first 5 houses are the soul experiencing itself in various stages of reveals. First, it discovers its own physical body, then it discovers its skills, then it discovers its mind, and then it discovers the influence of its home and the nurturing aspects. And then it goes into that fifth house. It's naturally a Leo house, and it experiences itself out on the world stage, what brings it pleasure. So being a Virgo, you rule the sign of health, the sign of service to others. And what we may be seeing Pluto has done is allow you to find a space where your personal pleasure is of service to others. So this is going to be pretty significant for quite some time. Pluto's also the focal point of some interesting dynamics at this time, because we see this quincunx from Mars here in Gemini, and Gemini is your 10th house of career. The quincunx for me is this blind spot. It's sort of this feeling that I have. I always equate it to driving a car down the road and I'm about to come around a turn, but I can't quite see it. And I feel that like there's something potentially unexpected there, and I can't see it. I have to feel it. And this feels a little emphasized by the moon entering your first house. Then we have a favorable aspect from Venus and the South Node to Pluto. And Venus is right now on the opening of this month. She's just a few degrees off of the supergalactic center, which is a point that emphasizes the relationship we have with ourself and how that relationship then nurtures and supports the relationships outside of ourself. And the South Node, in conjunction with her, and what's been doing in your second house since it got there, was asking for an egoless dynamic where the opinions and cooperation with others would take a back seat to the heart and what the heart wants to experience and what the soul has prepared it for. And in that way, you have an opportunity to be of service at a greater level to others. And I think this is continued to be supported by Pluto's transformational energy and Uranus's, bit of rebellion, and then on a spiritual level, knowing what the soul is calling for. Okay, that's just the first day. Let's go to the second, where we have a new moon in your first house. This is going to happen at 6:55 p.m. Pacific time. Now, I think this is a rather powerful moon in your first house, as it is at this 11 degree. And I tend to notice numbers and feel a sense of messages coming through them. And we see that Pluto's at 29 degrees, which reduces down to an 11. Mars is at 28 degrees, which reduces down to a 10. Neptune is at 29 degrees, it reduces down to an 11. This has been, Neptune and Pluto have been hovering at this dynamic for a while. And I know that Pluto just moved into Capricorn, but in its transit before it went retrograde, it was hanging out here. So we've been feeling this transformation of the mind. That's where I'm going. And now this new moon offers us an opportunity, as the sun and the moon come together in your first house, to plant the seeds for new processes, for processes that may on some level feel as if they're being slowed down by Saturn, but Saturn in its opposition is asking Virgo to specifically start to create a spiritual dynamic, a daily routine with your connection to your soul, to the part of you that doesn't live inside this body. The whole reason we incarnate is to take this this concept of what we could be, materialize it in this dense energy, and then through the unknown, discover ourselves again. And this opposition that Saturn is providing right now seems as if it is a bit of a where you go into your service, where you go into the idea that, this is no, I need to do this, or these are my responsibilities. This is just frivolous to think that, I can't, I must do, what my partnership where I'm creating cooperation, where my professional contractual relationships supersede, and if you have any planets in this house and Saturn sitting on them, Saturn is saying to reevaluate how you are moving, because as a Virgo rising, you could very much jump into your mind and into process, which will get you so far, but it also becomes, it's too much labor. And part of the dynamics of the stars right now are to trust the receptive energy that this universe has for us. And that is another thing that's going on with Venus here in the early degrees of Libra. All right. Oh, and there's something else I wanted to mention during this time. Okay, let's just click on Venus real quick, because as the nodes always make an opposition to one another, I do think that for my Virgos, because you are service oriented and you sort of tee up the Libra energy of cooperation or of being of service to others, it may be a stretch for you at this time to see the value of your individuality and where this 8th house energy gets to be activated, and to see the wisdom of your individual potentially, to create money, to create wealth, to create a sense of security for yourself. The 8th house really it's a very financial house. It's where we see stockbrokers and financial institutions, and where people have power and control over us, over their resources. And here yours just happens to be in the sign of self. So I think this is a powerful thing to note at this time, and an opportunity to plant the seeds for that very endeavor. Let's go to the 4th, where Mars will move into its fall. Now, when Mars moves into its fall, it's where it's in the opposite sign of its exaltation. And this is where it doesn't feel respected or heard or listened to, and can feel almost like, what's the point? Now, Mars in Cancer couldn't be more, it's very emotional Cancer. It's very maternal. It's very nurturing. It's very healing. And Mars is all about the self. So there's definitely a contrasting energy, conflicting energy. It's like water and heat makes steam. Now that steam can blow the lid off of the pot, or it can ignite the steam engine to move the locomotion forward. So here in the beginning of the month, it feels a little jarring. I think that Mars prefers the air sign, the quickness of Gemini, but here it gets to slow down and start to just swim with more intention about balance. And it's also the focal point of a T-square. The T-square is between the nodes and Mars. And we have a little bit of Neptune in here. So this could very much be this push-pull feeling of, are my dreams even possible? Are the things that I want even viable? You could also find that some of your opinions, we are heading into some pretty passionate times as we go into the presidential election, and you could find that some of your patriotic views are not aligned, or they are in difference to someone else, and you may find your internet platforms are shifting a little bit, or the groups that you've been involved in are thinking differently than you, or you're no longer feeling aligned. I think this is also very much indicated by the quincunx to Pluto. Pluto here in Capricorn, rules, restrictions, government, this sort of trickle down things that happen to us beyond our control, except when we're voting. So this may be a challenging time as Mars goes through this house. Again, that's your 11th house of networks and social groups, hopes and dreams, renovation and innovation. Let's go to the 9th, when your ruling planet re-enters your house. And that's super powerful because not only is Mercury exalted and the ruler, well, I should say the ruler of Virgo, it is also exalted in Virgo. So it's even more powerful than it is in Gemini because it's revered. It is the ultimate emperor of the house, not just a king. And here is where the mind really wants to process, wants to organize, wants to categorize, wants to understand and see down the road. And it's in a challenging aspect to Neptune, which is blurry and foggy. And here's Pluto kind of bringing up this psychological underbelly of the mind. Now, I didn't change the time from the new moon back at 6:55 p.m. And here we are seeing this is at 1 degree, the apex of a yod being the finger of God. So there is a real focus on how you're thinking, how you're processing, being aware of sort of the duality of the way that the mind is an apparatus. It's literally a structure that facilitates your thoughts, and how many of those thoughts are intentional thoughts and how many are just running on a loop. Because the square is Uranus wanting intentional thoughts, wanting to sort of move into new beliefs, new ideologies, new adventures in what's possible. And while the moon moves very quickly, again, it's reflecting this underbelly of the emotional, psychological things that literally help us make our decisions or dictate our decisions that we aren't even aware of. And the path is through your connection to source energy and your awareness of the divine laws of the universe and your application of them. So this is pretty wild, pretty cool though. I also want to mention that your ruling planet has hit this point for the third time. It moved into Virgo back in in August, and then it went retrograde, and now it is revisiting this point. So there has been that initial sort of awareness, then there's been the review of the experience, and now there's the potential of planning or strategizing or analyzing how to proceed ahead. And I think that could be really powerful when you start to think maybe it's inspired action rather than logical action. Now let's go to the 17th, where we have our first eclipse of the second eclipse season. This is going to happen at 7:34 p.m. Pacific time. And this is a pretty powerful eclipse, as the sun is obviously in Virgo, but the moon is reflecting the sun's light, and the sun's light is being reflected onto Neptune as well. So there's a feeling of an illumination about how important your emotional body really is in order for your mental health to allow you to pursue the things that you want. And this eclipse could usher in, or in some ways be the culmination of a cycle of dutiful behavior that has been erosive, has held you back on some level, or it has not served anything but your wallet. And when you're serving your wallet, it's sort of this unending chase for hours or for, clients or whatever. So this is really an opportunity to start to receive and to have an awareness of reception, and to allow what you have garnished in the way that you think. The 29, here's a 28. So I definitely still seeing patterns of ones, and then the renovation of that thought and that belief. So this is super, super powerful. And at the same time, we have Venus on the fixed star Spica. She is on the star that is the voice of angels. It is a star that brings good tidings. And on some level, she's still sort of, as she realigns her belief system and her awareness, here we've got this in your 10th house of your career, when you start to think about, how can I make money in a way that's much more authentic to me, using my skills, using my talents, using my voice, using the powers of my organization and my analyzation. And rather than fearing the potentials of that, how can I capitalize on it? Because again, this is your 5th house of self-expression and of creativity. And the moon again, it will move quickly, but on an eclipse, it's marking something that has long, it's what they call a fated event. I think of it this way. It's an experience that your soul has on some level agreed to experience in order to make a choice. And this choice would be to follow your emotional body, your intuitive body, the body that says, if I'm happy, then everybody else is a lot happier too. All of this on the eclipse day. Really, really powerful stuff. Now let's go on to the 22nd, where we will see the sun move into Libra. I'm going to move the time a little bit forward to 10 p.m. because Venus is also moving into Scorpio. And this is pretty powerful because, number one, the sun is approaching the supergalactic center, which is a point in the Shapley cluster that addresses the relationship we have with the self that we then take into our relationships with other people. The sun is in fall in Libra. It is exalted in Aries. So there's a feeling of my personal ego steps aside so that the cooperation and the partnership and the harmony that needs to happen happens. So this is not about the self here. This isn't about being the king, but isn't it? Couldn't it be the king of peace and harmony as you create that relationship with yourself that then serves the relationship you have with others? Now, Venus is moving into her detriment, that place where she feels a bit out of control and uneasy, and as if, somebody else has got the reins and she doesn't trust that dynamic. Things tend to not live up to her expectations when she's in that detrimental place, and she's just been in her rulership. So this is very powerful. She's also approaching what's called the Shapley attractor. And this is a point of within the Shapley cluster where we release false attachments to anything that isn't aligned to our deeper truth and the things that will bring us true happiness. It's also a place where the unconscious sort of bubbles up and we see its influence. It's a place where we start to recognize the psychological factors where we've been making our decisions. And we can see that Venus is squaring Pluto. Venus is squaring square and a half to Saturn and a quincunx to Neptune. She can't feel her divinity. She feels stymied by the rules, the boundaries, the limitations of Saturn. And this is in your 7th house. And then here she's feeling that square almost as a duty and bounty to someone else is preventing her. And I think that that's what gets to be addressed over the next few months, is whether or not that is absolutely true or not true. Because more than likely it's not true, and you could unravel a lot of duty and obligation that you didn't even realize that you were infusing into your life experience. Now we're going to see Mercury move on to the supergalactic center. Let's go to the 26th. And we see this little group of planets all within orb of that supergalactic center. So the South Node is asking me to allow the toxicity to be released, to sort of look at a bigger picture so that I can individualize myself on some level in order to create a more healthy partnership with others. The ego needs expression and wants expression and desires expression, and it's why it is the king of the zodiac. And here is Mercury revisiting my thoughts, my things, my relationships with my childhood experience, my workmates, my teammates. Mercury rules so many things. And while it's in an opposition to the North Node, is always in opposition to the South and to Neptune, this Neptune being a long-standing transit, I believe that at this time, it's the 29th and 28th degree that Neptune has been retrograding that's so powerful, really illuminating the number one and how we think and how we process. And are we processing by what has been given us, or are we discerning? I think that's so important. Let's now go to the final day of the month. And we see that things have pretty much lightened up. We see a lot more blue lines, light blue lines. The teal lines are very favorable. We see a grand trine to Saturn. It's kind of a loose trine because Venus is still at 9 degrees, but she'll move into it, and then we'll see this tighten up a bit when we get into October. And this is where I think that Mars has learned how to use this steam to move the story forward, pacing himself and understanding that that's how things work. Meaning that this Saturn is like, when you go slower, you can see the landscape better and you won't endo or trip over your feet or inadvertently burn yourself out and drown. And Venus is starting to feel a little bit more comfortable because she's starting to recognize her resources and the dynamics of where she thinks she's got to prove herself. But she doesn't. She doesn't have to prove herself. She just gets to be who she is and be aligned to that idea, and that it's good enough. So this is very powerful. And if I didn't mention, Scorpio is your third house of how you think. You know, it's communications. It rules the media, it rules newspapers and journalism, and it rules teaching, speaking, writing, my everyday activities. So there's a real opportunity. Well, even though she can feel out of control, the best way to feel in control is to trust that inner knowing and to practice that. And that's where I go back to the sextile between Pluto and Neptune, and then the trine between Pluto and Uranus. It gives a real opportunity to lift those barriers and see the divinity within the disruption and the power that it gives you over your fears. So again, we're looking at Pluto's in your 5th house of creation. We're looking at Neptune in your 7th house of partnership, and Uranus in your 9th house of beliefs and business. So this is pretty special. I didn't talk much about Jupiter. Jupiter is in play, but I felt like these were the biggest things of the month. So again, my name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer. I will be back in October with your monthly. In the meantime, please like, please subscribe, please share, and please join me on Sunday mornings live at 11 a.m. That's where we get information from the angels on how to traverse the week ahead's transits. We do a reading and we pull a tarot card for each sign. All right, everybody, have a wonderful September, and I'll see. Oh, and happy birthday, Virgo. Should have mentioned that at the top of the charts. Bye-bye.